BAT, otherwise known as British American Tobacco, 44 cigarette factories in 39 countries. And of course, these factories produce billions and billions and billions of cigarettes every other minute. The 4 principal brands which they manufacture and sell under, these are their so-called global drive brands, their premium brands, the ones that sell for the extra prices that Chris was referring to earlier. They are Dunhill, Kent, Lucky Strike and Pall Mall. What they try to do in each and every market is to take people, get them smoking those ones and associating with the brands. Many other famous international and local brands, of course. Rothmans was one of the first ones. Vogue, haven't heard of that for a while. And Peter Stuyvesant, remember that, the international passport to smoking pleasure. Market capitalization 1.3 trillion rand. So it's one of the largest companies here in Joburg. Only about 11-12% of the actual share capitalization is traded on the South African market. The rest is in London, but that's fine. You can buy them if you want to. Price to earnings ratio 21.6, dividend yield 4.33. So Chris, this one I saw is trading over 700 rands a share. It's done fine. It hasn't really shot the lights out. Yeah. What is the overall view with regard to the company?
We've had it in our
clients. There is the share craft.
Yes.
Yeah, there it goes.
We've had it in our clients' portfolios for quite some time. And you know, I have a bit of a conflict personally with this one because I think smoking is one of the most revolting things known to man. It's actually disgusting. It literally gets right up your nose. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you can stomach that part of it, then in terms of, you're quite right, it's not going to shoot the lights out, but it's got a good, steady performer. One of the ultimate rand hedges out there. And while a lot of people think that it's a dying industry, no pun intended, you know, it is declining about 1% per annum, maybe quickening over time, but in certain emerging markets, and okay, we can't include China because these guys and the other listed entities have no representation in China whatsoever. But there are many other places like Vietnam, for example, and many other, exactly, very rapidly growing economies, and they're doing exceptionally well there.
Yeah, because that's where I've had this one wrong. I mean, I've been very negative on these shares, saying people ought not to own them because of the death factor and that there's more and more regulation. Some of their core markets like Spain and Russia, they've had to face, you know, bans on outdoor smoking and cigarettes and so on. But they do seem to be able to carry on driving good, solid profit performance because of the fact that they upsell clients to their more premium type of brands. So. Yes. You've got to hand it to Nikanda Durante, the CEO. He seems to have kind of struck the right balance between growth and margin maintenance.
Who, by the way, I think is another Brazilian, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. What is it about these Brazilians when it comes to consumer goods? They've really got the finger in the pulse, haven't they? But you're right. And it's interesting, when you look at just talking about regulation, around the world, I think regulatory authorities get it absolutely wrong every single time. They think that by banning advertising, you can kill smoking. You actually can't. All that you do, all that advertising does, in my humble opinion, is that it changes from one perception to another. In other words, it'll move you from one brand to another. So they think they've got that covered because they put everything now into plain paper packets in certain areas. Doesn't matter. People know precisely what's in there, and they'll go for the brands. And they think it's cool to go and hold a ciggy, a tab, you know, and while they're drinking a beer, obviously. So that's why I say I think the philosophy behind the regulatory approach is completely and utterly wrong. But you can't tell these guys because they're zealots.
Although, isn't the regulatory approach mostly around pricing? So they just jack up the excise duties, which does cause illegal sort of smuggling and so on. Okay, look, the question really is, what about this company and what about its prospects? Because we know that they did a deal to retain a 42% stake in Reynolds America. They've got declining sales in the developed world, literally declining because less and less smoking is happening. Still some good. The question for me is it cheap enough considering its rather checkered potential future? We know this industry is in some sort of decline, not a very fast decline, but is the share price, is the price to earnings ratio low enough? Is the dividend yield high enough to compensate investors for the fact that these are, after all, somewhat threatened businesses?
Yeah. They've been threatened business for decades and decades, Paul, and you know, it's amazing. If you only have to go and watch a movie called Thank You for Smoking to see how they really address this whole thing. I mean, the marketing people are unbelievable. So look, it's a slow burn, and again, no pun intended. But I think from a fundamental perspective, yes, these companies like BAT are getting their cost structures right, and as I say, it's the ultimate rand hedge.
So smoking hot or not?
Hot.
Hot?
Hot.
Okay, I can't bring myself to call this thing hot. Not hot for me, hot for Chris though.